we go. First 7 minutes wasted, all that great information. But that's another thing too. Don't be afraid of making mistakes in your virtual classroom, because there's a lot of times when you forget to do something, or you forget and letting your students see that you're human, letting them see that you're learning about this technology at the same time that they are, is really, really important. So, so Kimberly was saying they're using Adobe Connect chat. Okay, for student interaction. All right, so if you can't unmute them or mute them, it's going to be very difficult to connect, to create any kind of things. One of the things you can try to do is to obviously give them opportunities to connect in advance, opening your classroom 15 or 20 minutes early, so you can try to get them settled down so that they can get working. Is it Sarah Lynn? Yeah, we're talking about concerns. What are our concerns right now before we jump into our thing for today? So if you want to share with us a concern about what you're thinking about going forward, that would be great. Lisa Erickson, let's see, they all have supplies. So they all have supplies and they don't have nearly 100% contact. I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks on this show, and it's something that some of you may not want to hear, but I think a lot of kids are really disenfranchised with the idea that this educational stuff is important right now. They're watching their parents, their friends, their families struggling in a way that is unprecedented in any of our lifetimes. They're seeing things happening. We have a lot of people who are saying this is not a big deal. We've got I've got uncles and aunts in the greatest generation who are saying, you know, our parents went off to war and all you're being asked to do is sit on the couch. And they're giving kids a hard time, and kids are becoming, their needs and their worries and their concerns are not being considered right now because we have so many other things out there. And we have teachers who are attempting to get too much information out to kids. We have teachers who are trying to get information out to them in ways that isn't working based on their family situation. And if anything we need to be doing right now, we need to be talking to kids directly and getting in touch with them. We can send them, I've got teachers that are telling me that they're doing drive-bys, standing on the sidewalk and trying to communicate with kids. They're sending postcards through traditional mail, and I know the USP would really appreciate that right now because not a lot of stuff is going through the mail. But there's so many different things that are going on with these kids, and a lot of us are looking at it like, I don't have 100% connection. You know, is it me? Is it my work? What can I do different? And the answer is nothing. What we need to do is get a hold of these kids and find out what's going on with them. And if we have a relationship with them, we can use that relationship to connect with them. And once they feel like we're connecting with them, we can begin to motivate them. That was the theme of the show last week. Motivation created by connection. So right now, the most important thing we can be doing is reaching out to the kids in our care, in our classroom this year, but also as soon as possible, figuring out what our classroom is supposed to look like for the next year, our classes, and try to get in touch with those kids. And we can talk about that stuff as well as we go forward. So if you have any additional comments, I'm going to start sharing our screen. We'll get some of this information that you're talking about out to you guys. And as I said, I'm a school counselor by trade, and so for me, the most important thing was always the idea of connection, and that is really the theme of our show, or the theme of our show from the very beginning, and all of the questions, the excellent questions and concerns that you brought up. For me, as a counselor, coming from my perspective, boil down to the idea of connection, because right now, and I've been doing this for 17 years, and over the last 17 years, a lot of people have looked at counseling, social emotional literacy, character education as being something, oh, that's nice. And, you know, it'd be nice if we had time to do that. But that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about all kids being happy. We're not talking about all kids being able to, you know, be who they are and talk about the self-esteem movement. I'm from California, and the self-esteem movement almost destroyed our graduation rate in the 80s and 90s because we spent all of our time telling kids they were great, but they weren't doing any work. So we had a lot of kids with really high self-esteem who weren't able to really move on to another level. And then they went out into the working world and they weren't really able to manage themselves or to be able to self-motivate. and it became a real difficult situation. So this isn't what we're talking about. Right now, what we're talking about is a crisis situation, and all the kids that you're dealing with right now are dealing with some form of trauma. We've been talking about trauma-informed classrooms for several years, and it's becoming more and more in the mainstream of people thinking about that for 20 to 30% of their classroom. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now, it's every kid in your classroom. Think about what they've lost. Think about what they're dealing with. Think about their family members and what they're dealing with, and the reality of the situation that they're being exposed to right now. So if we're not meeting them in a as trauma-based teachers and thinking about that, and all of the work that I'm going to do and focus on and try to get out there through Learning Revolution or Facebook Live or anything over this summer, is talking to educators about being aware of the fact that every kid that they're going to be dealing with in the fall, whether in person or online, is dealing with some sort of grief and loss. And last time we talked about the 5 stages of grief and loss, and we can talk about those kinds of things. And it's important that we understand that, because none of this has to do with what you're trying to accomplish online, or the kids are lazy, or the kids, and maybe there are some kids that are out there lazy, and they might well be lazy, but I guarantee you they're not just lazy, they're also experiencing some significant issues. And in order for us to do any of the work that we want to do for the remainder of this year, or preparing for the fall of next year, it's really important that we acknowledge the grief and the loss and the trauma that everyone is suffering, and reestablish ourselves and talk to our educational leaders, whether it's our principals, superintendents, directors of education at the state level and the national level, to say to them that, you know what, curriculum needs to come second right now. This is not the most important thing that we're dealing with. We are dealing with a worldwide pandemic. We still don't know what's happening. We're starting to see in New York now some cases that are exposing children to the illness as well, and we're seeing some it's not the same respiratory situation, but it's a small minority of children that are starting to be affected by the virus differently. And so now that's going to start to get into the mainstream thought process as well over the period of time. And the kids that are talking to us, the kids that are coming to us, are going to be experiencing this as they come into our classroom. And I promise you that education and their future, where they are in the brain development process, not in the front of their lobe thinking 10 years down the line or even a year down the line. They're thinking now, right now. They're not thinking about their education. So as educators, the most important critical thing we can do is connect with them. Starts with buckling your own seatbelt first, or if you're on a plane, you put on your own oxygen mask before you help others. Understanding where you are in the crisis process, because all of us are experiencing grief and loss. Understanding how you're feeling on a particular day going into your classroom. I woke up on this Monday, I woke up in the morning and I absolutely could not stop thinking about all of the negative things that I've done in my life. That was it. I was in a completely black space. I told my wife, Philippa, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm just replaying the stuff in my head. And I really had to do some exercising, some stretching. I had to do some thinking to bring myself out of that before I went into my classroom and started talking to educators like yourself. So connection, first 5 minutes, last 5 minutes, when you're doing synchronous connection, you're face-to-face, make sure that the first 5, the last 5, that you're talking specifically, ask them questions. What are your concerns? What's going well for you? Just like we did to start out this presentation. Don't be afraid to talk about the elephant in the room. This is the real thing. This is what everyone's talking about. And it's important that we have these conversations on a daily basis with the kids in our care. Honesty, positivity, talking futuristic talk when we see each other again, when we get through this thing. And last but not least, especially for kids who are coming to you in trauma situations, it's important that we remember to not make promises, because that can be really, really difficult when we're not able to live up to those promises. Right now, I want to take a break. Good protocol to not keep listening to myself talk the whole time. Anybody have any comments about the connection before? I appreciate the comment from Cheryl Lynn, relationships and connections. Anybody want to open their mic and share something about what we just talked about in terms of what we're looking at going forward, or share in the chat room? so you don't just hear my voice panning on for the next 20 or 30 minutes. Who's got a comment?
This is Cheryl, and I have a comment.
Sherilyn, thank you.
Yeah, I had my grandkids yesterday, and I have a 4th grade granddaughter, and she said, I just was talking to her, asked her how she was doing, and we're just having conversations and reading, and she says, what I'm really worried about is how am I going to get caught up when I've missed all of this stuff? And I don't want that to be the message that we're giving our kids right now. I want her to know, and as we talked, the most important thing is that she reads and writes and does math and does learning in her own way, and not to worry about getting caught up. When it's time for that, then we'll work on it, but that's not her concern.
That's so awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. You're exactly right. I mean, it's now's the time to help them self-direct their own learning, get them reading, get them writing, get them thinking about stuff that they're interested in, doing research online. They are learning. They're learning so much right now. And the idea that somehow we're messaging that out to students, that a fourth grader, that she needs to be worried about the fact that she's going to get behind in her studies, and to be saying things like, where do you think we're going to be going? I mean, we just got back from 2008. Remember 2008, the
Yeah.
Great Recession?
Mm-hmm.
We just got back to the same job numbers, and we lost every single job that we created since 2008 in the last month in the United States of America. And the same thing is happening all around the world. So if you want to repeat 4th grade, let's repeat 4th grade, but we're not in any hurry. What's the hurry? You know, so thank you so much, Sherilyn. That's an excellent point. And we have, let's see, anybody else? Catch up can't be a worry. That's exactly right. Anyone else have any comments about what we're just talking about? And it's so important. You know, there's no way that should be the messaging that's coming from educational institutions. I had a lady that came on in the first session of this show who was saying to me that she had a 4th grader who was doing 4 hours of online a day and an 8th grader who was doing 4 hours of online video. Their professor, who I'm sure, or their middle school teacher, who I'm sure has never done video before, is on a video like this, talking for 4 hours, probably reading from a script, and expecting an 8th grader to sit there and watch that video the entire time. And the message is, I don't care about what's happening in your life. What I care about right now is making sure that my job gets done. And as educators, we have to take care of ourselves, buckle our own seatbelts first, do all those kinds of things. But man, if that's the message that we're sending to our kids, just think about how that's being received. You know, think about how they're responding to this after they've lost everything and, you know, have been taken away from everything that's important to them. So thank you very much, Sherilyn. That was an excellent comment. I really appreciate that. Following on the PowerPoint, the tech survey, this is something I would encourage all of you that are working with students. Right now, it's probably not worthwhile to do, but if you can get a class list of what you're dealing with next week, in August when you come back and start doing that, start doing a tech survey of your family and figuring out certain things about this in terms of the best way so you can build a roster and you can start thinking about how to effectively connect with these kids. Find out what time they have available to do their schoolwork. As I said, older kids are being asked to take care of younger kids. You've got parents working from home. We've got all those kinds of things changing. Find out what kind of equipment they have. Find out what's going on in their family. Yeah, maybe they have laptops. Maybe they have computers. Maybe they have internet access. But what are we going to do in terms of sharing that if there's 4 or 5 people in the household that are needing to use that equipment? So it's important to find out what kind of information they have. I'm not able to open my chat right now for some reason, and if you guys are chatting me questions, I am not, I don't know why it won't open. It normally does, but it won't open right now. Let's try Alt H. Okay, I'm not able to see it. So if you're sharing something with me, I'll get to you in just a minute. Find out what kind of connectivity they had. Several of you have mentioned that, kids who may not be connected. A lot of the internet providers are going to be tasked with that responsibility. You talk about a wartime a War Powers Act and thinking about the federal government going out to internet providers and saying, look, we have to provide internet for all the kids who are school aged right now. That needs to be a priority. We need to get that information. We need them at least to have access. So many of the facilities that they used to get access to, the libraries and other places, especially that they could do that kind of stuff, are not available to them right now. So find out what kind of time they have, equipment, connectivity, and also need to find out who knows how to use the information. So I'm trying to do an online chat with my superintendent of schools. She retired 10 years ago, is my mentor. We're trying to get on to Learning Revolution next 2 weeks from now. And she has no idea how to use Zoom. So it's really interesting. A genius educator, 20 years classroom experience, 25 years administrative experience, can't get Zoom to work. So it's important to understand that the knowledge in the household and who's going to be able to do that in advance so you can get some information out. And the best way to do that I've found so far is by doing not screen shares, but taking screenshots and being able to send them exact information about how to get on that and to see. I'm going to stop the share real quick and see if we have any questions that we need. Okay, we got people engaging with each other. Perfect. Thank you very much. We'll go back survey, find out where they're at, find out what they're thinking about in terms of the fall, so that when we get into this thing that we're not worried about what's going on. The synchronous versus the asynchronous, and when you're face-to-face versus not being face-to-face. Some tips for cameras and films. As I said, I've been on doing video for 17 years and have had an online website as well. So think about some of the things. A lot of times the way that we position ourselves in front of the camera, whatever our camera happens to be. If you can use a better camera, if you have a camera that's better than your phone, if you have a laptop that works, thinking about how you position yourself, that's really important. A lot of times, and this is something I think you could probably write at least a really good blog on, is personal space in the virtual world, because I see so many people online and they're this close to their camera, and even if you're just teaching, it feels uncomfortable because it's somehow they feels like they're kind of they're in your personal space, and we know that from an arm's length or an arm's distance when you're in face-to-face contact, and the same thing to be thinking about when you're doing something online. Obviously, think about your audio. I have a studio, but I still went with the headset. These things are easy to do and they plug right in. Think about your lighting. You don't need to do too much with the new current situation when it comes to cameras, but just make sure that all the light is in front of you, and anything behind you is going to silhouette you and make it difficult. And I try to do this as much as possible, and it's something that I've really had to force myself to do, especially if you're in an online situation. It becomes very easy to start looking at the person you're talking to instead of looking at the little dot, which is where your camera is. So the more eye contact, the more you can focus on that white light or that little dot that's in the middle of your camera, the more connected the kids are going to be. They're going to still feel connected to you. Really good tips for that kind of thing. If anybody wants a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, you can send me an email. My email is at the end of the program, and I will share that with you. And then some for when you're doing the synchronous and you're doing some teaching tips, a lot of the stuff they're really encouraging right now is not sharing the live links. Don't go out there and share that stuff. I know Zoom is updating as of May 30th, I believe, because of the Zoom bombing situation where people are taking links from Facebook and they're joining in and doing inappropriate things in lesson plans. And so a lot of teachers have experienced that. Some of the things that I did today, for example, for those of you that were here early, you join early, you talk to your kids, you open up the classroom, you let them talk to each other. That's a great way to get kids connected to each other. And some of the different activities that you can do. If you're going to record it, I encourage you to record it. But one of the things that I would also say, and I've seen this at least 100 times so far in social media, where teachers are sending out pictures of their online lessons with their students' pictures in the picture that they're sending out. So all the little squares, like I see your little squares on my screen, all their little squares have a picture of a kid in there. And that's not okay. There's privacy issues that go along with that. And if you don't have the permission from the parents, and even if you do, those pictures shouldn't be going out online, because it might be great that you're doing a great online lesson and your kids are engaged. But I still think that you need to be aware of that and some of the privacy issues that are going on with the kids that you're teaching with. Some of the ideas, these are great lessons that people have learned online: making choice, doing half the amount that you would normally do, being really, really patient with yourself, being patient with technology. I can't tell you how many times I was on a Facebook Live yesterday with one of my truly dear friends, a principal, a good friend of mine. We were using Zoom to go to Facebook Live, and the connection just disconnected. And my wife, who does all of our Facebook stuff and online stuff, got really, really frustrated and just walked out. And I kind of had to sort of get myself back and continued the conversation and kept it going. But it's important to, it's important to be patient with the technology, and be patient with your kids' technology, and be patient with the fact that their connections aren't always going to be the best, and that the best planned class and the best planned situation that you had set up was not going to go the way that you wanted it to go. And just to really be patient with yourself and with your kids. And again, think about this as an opportunity to connect, and think about connection before the content. So these are really good lessons. Again, any of this information I'll make available to you at the end. If you can go on, Wi-Fi is great. If you got Wi-Fi, great. But if you can plug in, I'm plugged in. I always plug in when I go online, and I'm going to be doing a video class. I know a lot of us probably don't even have the plugs anymore, and we don't even think about it. But if it's in a box in the closet, unplug it, stick it into your modem, and put your laptop and your recording studio close enough that you can actually plug in. Because even if your Wi-Fi is the greatest, there might be 150, 200 people in your neighborhood using that same Wi-Fi, and it could be affected. So plug in whenever you can. Make sure that you shut down everything in the background. Think about that too when you're thinking about your background. I spend a lot of time with my background. I'll stop the share again and just kind of give you a sense. I created a virtual background for myself. Think about what's behind you. We talk about this in the military: be aware of your six. But know what's in your background, see what's back there. And the same thing is true in your online background when you're sharing your screen. If you think about that, if I was to escape from my PowerPoint and think about what's going on in the background of on my computer, everything that's on your computer is going to show up on the screen of the kids who are watching you. So if there's anything back there that you don't want to share, it's a really good time to make sure that you check all that stuff before you move forward. And let's see, what do we got? I'm gonna try to move this. I can't move my PowerPoint, so I can get back to my regular slide. See, this is what happens. You're trying to get down, trying to share your, oh, there we go. How's that look? That's nice. All right. I don't think we're going full screen right now. Next thing you want to think about too, think about making sure that the links that you're sending out are links that are, that you check your links before you go out. I'm about to share some links with you. First thing I did before I got on here was check every one of those links and make sure that they were working, so that I could make sure that everybody that was in the online, that's a picture of my wife there that I was covering up. So check your links before you go out there. And then if you're thinking about what kind of stuff to do with the kids, all of the things that are in here talk about the stuff that we talked about earlier. But most of it, as you notice, these are virtual teaching and learning tips, and they all talk about having fun, making it playful, making sure there are activities that kids can do. Don't make them sit there for long periods of time and listen, or do a video that's really long for them to have to watch. Give them activities to do. Give them ideas that they can use immediately, and things that can really help them. So these are some of the ideas that we've been talking about. I'm going to check real quick. Let's see if we have any questions in there. Any comments about that, about teaching in the synchronous or the asynchronous environment of any of the stuff that we mentioned? Again, if anybody wants the PowerPoint and some of those things, my email, I'll send it out to everyone real quick. You can email me. And I will send you that PowerPoint. Any comments about the slides that we just shared about teaching? Any experience of the synchronous or asynchronous teaching that you want to share from what you've been doing? Sherilyn, both have value, some of each. That's excellent. Obviously, it's really nice to use a mix. Don't be afraid of video right now. We have a lot of teachers who are a little bit nervous about, well, I think there's too much screen time, or I think, yeah, there's too much bad screen time. There's too much time sitting in front of someone who's trying to talk to them instead of giving them a really good video they can watch. So if you have access to good videos and you have access to stuff that they can use, the resources I'm about to share with you, don't recreate the wheel. If you've got information and you can put it in a video, they're not getting too much screen time. They're getting too much newbie screen time. They're getting too much of us trying to recreate what we do in the real classroom in the virtual classroom. So that's, I think, part of it. But anything about assessment? Assessments in what regard are you talking about? Because I think right now there shouldn't be any assessment going on. It's ridiculous to assume that we can figure out whether or not the kids are doing it on their own and whether or not they're able to access the information. How are we assessing that? We can't watch them. There's really testing. How are we doing any testing in this environment right now? And how is it even valid that any of the states are considering continuing that? And this is part of I'm going to get up on my soapbox right now. And if we don't talk to our leaders about the situation that we're in right now and tell them to wait and to back off in terms of the testing and all these things, all they're worried about right now are their budgets. All they're worried about right now is their ADA. And all they're worried about right now is continuing to keep their jobs. And administrators and people at the top of the food chain and the educational environment who are talking about testing, they should be ashamed of themselves right now, because it doesn't matter and it shouldn't matter. And it's not a part of what we should be doing and what we should be thinking about for these kids. This is not important. So what do I think about testing? I think it's ridiculous. And if someone asked me and I was working in a classroom to conduct tests, I'd be more than happy to send them out. But I'm not going to be worried about the results of what's going to come back. And if there are teachers out there who are worried about getting fired, honest to goodness, I can't imagine that there's going to be, now, paraprofessionals and other people who are in those situations, yeah, we need money to protect those jobs and those absolutely essential reading specialists and those. But classroom teachers, that's not a situation that we should be dealing with right now. And the book companies and the testing companies and all of those people who are knocking on their Congress people's door and telling them that those things need to happen right now, they just don't want their bottom line to shrink. And as educators, we need to stand up to that and say, no, we're not doing that. How can I proctor that test? How do I know that the parent's not doing it for them? How can there be any validity to that being done right now? And all you're doing is pouring money into their pockets. When I have classroom assistants, reading associates, people right now in the cafeteria and the other places who aren't going to get paid next year, no, that cannot be the focus of our ideas right now. That is. Give a point of value for college credit to receive college credit. If you're talking about that, Clarence, in terms of being able to give college credit to somebody at this point, I would say that you could do that by giving them an oral exam. If I was going to do that to a student, I would orally exam and find out what they know. If they can talk me through a particular process that they're able to accomplish, if you're talking about hands-on kinds of things, I would give them an oral exam if I could do that. Now, if you're talking about a caseload of 200 or 300 people, then again, if you want to send out an exam to them, I have no idea how you're going to be sure that they're not just on the internet looking for the answers. So if you're going to give them college credit based on their ability to fill out an open book test, then absolutely do it. But then I say make every test open book. Say to every kid, we're going to test, we're going to do what? And every one of these tests is open book. because that's what the internet is. And if you want to get into that conversation, our education system was created at the beginning of the first industrial revolution. We're in the face of the fifth industrial revolution in 5G, and then we're still teaching the curriculum basically the same way it was taught back then. So if we're being judged based on our ability to remember and regurgitate information, I've got a watch that can do that better than every single person in the world. So if that's what education means, we have an opportunity right now to redefine education. We have an opportunity right now to take a look at what education is really about and what our kids need to be successful in the next generation. And this is not it. And what we prevent, you want to know why kids aren't showing up in your virtual classroom? They know this isn't it. They know we're not preparing them for anything. And they know that, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great things that are out there and a lot of stuff, but most of that stuff, in my mind, from teachers, is stuff that they connect with their kids. And when kids are successful in classrooms, it's because teachers are a successful adult and a caring, kind, considerate adult in their life, or they push them to higher levels and they help them to overcome calculus and they help them to overcome whatever it happens to be. But it's not calculus that matters. It's the person that did that. It's the interpersonal connections when kids who come from challenging backgrounds connect with a human being who cares, and that's what pushes them forward. And they go off into school and they get an education, and then they go out into the real world and they find a place and they trust adults and they learn and they're able to put themselves into situations. The middle class was almost destroyed in 2008. What do you think is going to happen to the middle class right now? What do you think is going to happen to those kids who don't have college educations? To the kids who don't have the access to that, whose parents now don't have jobs and won't be able to send them off to college. We talk about equality and equal rights, equal and the same as being, you know, the equality across the board. We all have access to a public library, but if I can't read, it doesn't do me any good. We all have access to public schools and to higher education, but if I don't have any sense or belief that it's going to mean anything in my life going forward, why am I going to do that? We as educators need to be fighting this fight, and that's what this show's about. If you want to join me in that fight, join me every week and give me your suggestions about how to do that. Because like Cheryl Lynn said earlier, if we have fourth graders worrying about falling behind, we are not doing our job. And that's what is really concerning me. And that's, you know, obviously we're talking about other great questions about, you know, we have great questions about science-based and philosophy. I'm not exactly sure what Virginia's talking about there, but maybe concerns about particular interests of parents, their own religious backgrounds and what they hold to be important. And they have to begin to deal with that themselves, and holding the education system to task about what they're teaching their children. That's something that they need to take care of, and they need to be sure that they're doing that in their own way. Obviously, there are laws out there about these kinds of things, but right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's more important that we are connecting with our kids and that we're reaching out to them, and that we're talking to them. And obviously different states have different textbooks, and that's fine. If you're dealing with a kid in your state and you're teaching with that, then we need to learn to do that. Weekly access through this platform. Yeah, weekly access, our show's on every week at the same time. I think we're going to move it to 5 o'clock next week, but I'm going to get the invitation out faster to Steve. So I think it's going to be 5 o'clock my time. I'm in Lisbon, that's London time. So I don't know what it is we're in the East Coast, it's 5 hours difference. It'll be noon Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to get that out, and we're going to begin to talk more about these kinds of things. I'm going to finish the PowerPoint for today. I wanted to share some resources with you. Thank you for all your comments. I have a copy of the chat at the end of the presentation as well. If you want a copy of the chat to get some of this great stuff that people are talking about, please let me know. I'll be happy to share that with you. Last thing I wanted to do, share some online resources. Obviously, this is not, you don't have to, I mean, you can find some great stuff anywhere. This is stuff that I found that I thought was really, really good, very poignant and right to task about the connection piece as well as anything else. We Are Teachers is doing some great stuff. I'm going to need to go to the very beginning of my slideshow and start this thing again. Here we go. All right. So We Are Teachers has a great online site. We'll bring it up. Let's do this. right now, I have all these sites up, so let's escape this, bring this down. I already have all this stuff up because I planned it in advance. So We Are Teachers, 325 amazing online resources. These are incredible things. These links, I'm going to put right now the actual links to the sites that I'm talking about. I'm going to put in the chat. And let's see, stop my chair. Here they are right now. So these are the links, the ones that I'm using. They're in alphabetical order there, so you'll be able to use those. Because I'm clicking in my own thing. But they have all the different online resources that are here. Great stuff, all the different things that you have here. We Are Teachers is one of my favorite sites for talking about social emotional stuff and talking about teachers taking care of themselves as well. So that's a wonderful site. Another great site, Edu Blogger, has some amazing things that they have going on right now, and talking about everything, the virtual online, virtual learning tools, tips for teaching in the virtual classroom. All of this stuff comes from teachers that are blogging about their experience right now. So they have all these things. This is planning for a school closure parent survey. This is a great thing, like a tech survey that you can use. Here's where I got a lot of the pictures for today that you can see here. Setting up your day, how you're going to set up your day. Another great thing for setting up your day, this Slidemania. They've got these online templates. This is a choice board. They're talking a lot about choice right now. But the daily online templates for the weekly planner that they have, these are all free downloads. You can set up your classroom templates, and you can go online and set up your class in advance. And it's pretty amazing what they're offering right now. So this resource, this is the Society for EdTech Directors. They've got all of the online learning guides to online teaching. These are the EdTech people that are in your schools and in your departments. They've got all the different stuff here. This is the real techie stuff. All the different online tools, the best ways of learning how to do videos and do those kinds of things, interactive tools, mind mapping, all of the different stuff that they have. They've got that site that's really tremendous. And then last but not least, this is the United Nations Education, Science, and I don't know, some other council. They've got these are worldwide institutes, and they have some amazing different things and talking about all the different management systems, different systems that are built specifically for cell phones. So you might have a student that's not able to connect with you live, but they can't get, or on a laptop, and they can't use some of the other stuff. You may be able to use some of these online systems that are working. And a lot of these massive online systems, we all know about Khan Academy, but these are ways that in third world and second world countries where kids are accessing information online, plenty of self-directed learning sites, places where kids can get interested, and things that you can share. So some fantastic resources out there, and they are just available to anyone. I gave you those resources on there. Sarah's got a quote. I'm going to read Sarah's quote really quickly. Online survey, literacy skills, love to have some international feedback. You guys stay in touch with each other. As I said, send me an email if you want. Let me share it one more time. Getting back to our PowerPoint. Last thing I wanted to share with you, especially for the elementary school. Here's my email address. This is my website, schooltoolstv.com. Now I'm going to share that with you really quickly. This is a daily online 1-minute social skills video that's free for everyone. There's no cost to it whatsoever. It's just an online resource right now that's made available to everybody. You don't have to sign in. You don't have to give me any information. You don't have to turn in, and parents and teachers that are of your kids don't have to do it either. So every day of the school year, I've been doing this for 15 years. We have a 1 minute. It's actually 58 seconds long. So you have a 58-second video. That's for the K-8 environment. We also have conversation starters for older kids. You can find those up here. Middle school and advisory videos as well. Those are also a minute long. But every week we do 5 videos that talk to the kids about social emotional literacy, character education, and what's going on. And each week I also do a little conversation about the closure and what's happening in that, what's going on right now with that. So I'm going to share one of these with you really quickly. You should be able to hear I shared my. Hey little diamonds, I hope this finds you and yours doing well and staying safe and strong out there. Things are starting to open up a little more every day, and you're probably getting to do more things and go more places, which is fantastic. And I'm sure you're still working hard to finish the school year strong, which your teacher and I really appreciate. In this week's videos, I'm going to share some ideas with you about how to make new friends this summer. Why? Because friends are awesome, and because we may not be able to do all the things we normally do this summer or see all the people we normally see. But we're diamonds, and we're going to make the best out of whatever happens. And we're going to keep doing our part to help everyone around us stay safe and strong. Remember, I'm here for you, diamonds, so if you have any questions, please have your teacher or your parents email me. As always, my daily videos are open for you to watch anytime at schooltoolstv.com and on YouTube by searching Rusty's Daily Videos. You're doing an amazing job, diamonds. Keep it up. Thanks for watching, and remember, we're all in this together and we're here to help you through. As long as we keep trying, there is nothing we can't do. Peace out, little diamonds. Have a fantastic day. So that one's a little longer because I do the weekly share, but all these other videos are 58 seconds. We follow a similar format every day. It creates a conversation at a distance. It helps teachers connect more effectively with kids. That resource is available to any of you right now. You can share it, push it out. You can find the videos on YouTube. As I said, Rusty's Daily Video. Those are things that you can push out to students. So that's what I've got for you today. Again, I'll be here next week, noon Eastern time. If you'd like to join me again, please continue to be an advocate for the kids in your care, and to remind those people who are quote unquote leaders to think about what's really, really important, and to make sure that they understand that we're here for our kids first and foremost, and not for the testing companies and the book companies. So whatever they think the motivation is, our motivation is to take care of the kids in our care. Thank you for all you're doing. You're amazing. If anybody has any comments, if anybody has anything that they'd like to share, closing comments from anybody. Thank you for stay safe, stay strong. Anyone else? All right, you're heroes. I'll be here next week and every week after that, 12 o'clock Eastern time, connecting in the virtual classroom. Stay safe.